Hi everyone, Kristina Werner here. Welcome to another video for assignments@stamp.com. Today I'm going to be using the stamp set that's included in the November card kit. It's called Thankful Heart. And I'm going to do some heat embossing of the greeting, and then I'll do some multicolor stamping around it using another stamp set. So I have some Nina Desert Storm cardstock here. It is cut to 3.5 inches wide. No, I'm sorry, 3 3/4 inches wide by 5 inches tall. And I've prepped it with an anti-static powder tool and then mounted the large greeting from the stamp set onto the door of a Mini Misty tool. I'm going to use my Mini Misty so that I can stamp this multiple times in Versamark ink so I can get a really good impression. So I've stamped it once with Versamark, and now I'm going to stamp it again without moving that cardstock or the stamp. It's going to stamp in the exact same spot. And then I'm able to sprinkle on some embossing powder and it will fill in all of those areas. The embossing powder I'm using today is Antique Gold from Simon Says Stamp, and this particular gold embossing powder has a slightly warmer tint to it. It almost has a little bit of an orangey tint to it, so I thought it would go well with sort of the fall or autumn color scheme that I'm going to be using today. So I'm sprinkling that on and letting it fall into the coffee filter below. I just use a coffee filter just to catch all of that embossing powder. I'm heat setting that with my heat tool until all of the embossing powder is smooth and melted. And then I'll go ahead and wipe off all of that extra powder that was left behind because I want to make sure that it's nice and clean for all of the stamping. So I'm going to use the Flowers on My Mind stamp set. This is another card kit stamp set from a few months back, and I didn't have a chance to use it too much, and I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting, and this is the perfect opportunity. I'm going to use 5 different colors of ink from Simon, and these are sort of fall autumn-esque colors, but then I threw in that Hot Mama, which is a little bit more of a brighter purple, just for some interest and some brightness in all of these stamps. So I started down in the bottom corner and then I'm kind of working my way around that entire area. For the areas that are right up next to the words where I don't have a stamp that kind of nestles right in there, I'm going to use the smaller flower stamps or the little 3-dot stamp to fill in those areas. And I'm also making sure that as I stamp all these images that I don't stamp 2 of the same color next to each other. I want to make sure things really spread out. So it's super easy to fill in all of those little areas. And then when I had everything all stamped, I'm going to add a little bit of detail around the outer edge. So I'm going to take my Versamark ink pad and just rub it along that edge. And I heard someone mention to me that they were worried that their ink pad was going to get like sliced for like a paper cut. But the Versamark ink pad is actually very durable. I haven't had any problems with doing inking like this. So I'm sort of just inking those edges. And then I'm going to go back to that same coffee filter and dump out a bunch of this embossing powder. And I'm going to very carefully kind of dip the edges of my cardstock into the embossing powder. I'm doing it this way instead of just sprinkling it on because the particular type of ink that I use today, the Simon Says Stamp ink, stays wet a little bit longer than you might think. It is dry to the touch, but it does kind of soak into the cardstock and spread out, so it has a really even appearance. But because it's doing that, the surface of the paper is still a little bit damp. You don't feel it with your fingertips, but it does attract embossing powder. So just to avoid any of that, I decided to just carefully dip the edges in so that I wouldn't have any excess embossing powder hanging around. So I funneled that back into the jar, all the extra, and then heat set this with a heat tool until all of the embossing powder on the edges was smooth. When you do this, make sure everything is smooth. I've had times where I've missed a spot or two and then the powder comes off later. So just kind of tip it in the light and excuse me, and make sure everything is melted. I then scored my card base. My card base is made out of some Nina Solar White. This is the 110-pound version. And then I put some foam adhesive on the back of my stamped piece and then straight down onto the card base. So that's my card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I thought the color scheme was really pretty and it's a little bit for the fall and autumn, but still pretty bright and playful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.